Hey everybody, welcome back to Touch Your Reactions, Sabaton Army. We've got another good one for you tonight. We're going to be checking out the song Smoking Snakes. This was one of the songs that was voted for over on my Patreon. I gave them a whole list of Sabaton songs that I haven't done yet, and I told them I'll take the top 5 songs. We'll put them on the list for May. Smoking Snakes finished in the top 3, I think. So here we are. We're going to check it out. This song was originally requested by my good friend Lionel Lyons, who's been giving me all kind of good suggestions on things to check out over here. We're going to be checking out 4 videos tonight. We're going to do the official Sabaton lyric video. Then we're going to do a fan-made video out of Brazil that had like 3 million views, 4 million views or something like that on it. So it must be good. I'll check that out. And then we're going to watch the Sabaton history. And we're going to wrap it up with a live performance. This live actually caught my eye because it's in a small venue. It's in a really small venue. But it seemed like the crowd was super hyped up in the crowd. I just kind of click through the videos real quick to make sure the sound is good before I put them on the cue them up to play, and the crowd just seems super hyped up, so really excited about seeing how that goes. So just want to take a second to thank everybody who's been liking the channel and subscribing, joining the Patreon, all that stuff. Thank you all so much. You've been helping the channel grow really fast, and I'm having a ball doing this, and I'm just glad you guys are all here joining the ride and coming along with me. I never thought it would grow this fast. When you decide to do reaction videos, you never know if anybody's ever going to watch your stuff, and it's very cool and humbling that you guys have, given me a chance and you enjoy my stuff, and I feel like I'm making a lot of friends out there in the YouTube universe by doing these reaction videos. So thank you all for, helping an old man have some fun out here in his autumn of his years. Anyway, let's get off that crap. Let's go ahead and jump into this lyric video for Smoking Snakes by Sabaton. This is the official, so it's got to be good. Sabaton does better lyric videos than any group I've ever seen in my life, so I'm always excited to see their quality. All right, that's all I got. Let's go ahead and drop into this thing. And this is Smoking Snakes, official lyric video by Sabaton. All right, first verse, very good. It sounds like it's going to be a story about 3 heroes who did something amazing. I do know that this song is about Brazil, I think, maybe. I think I saw when I was looking at the history, it mentioned Brazil. I might be wrong. I don't know anything about this story. I still don't know what these guys did. Apparently they went to a fight on a foreign land and did something super heroic. The lyrics are good on this. The arrangement is good on the music. So far, so good. I'm liking it. I'm just going to back up. All right, so Cobras Fumantes Eterna es una Victoria. I don't speak this language, but I do know cobras are snakes. This song is called Smoking Snakes, so I'm guessing fumantes sounds like fumes, so maybe that means the smoke fumes. Eterna es su Victoria. Eternally remembered for your victory, maybe? I'm probably totally wrong. I probably shouldn't have stopped to translate a language I don't speak, but I think that's what that says. Smoking snakes, smoking snakes with eternal victory, something like that. So that's my guess. Let me me know how bad I screwed it up. All right, if I'm being totally honest, I wasn't blown away by that guitar solo. It just seemed kind of basic, but didn't blow me away. Very good. I don't know why, but this song reminds me a little bit of 82nd All the Way, just a little bit. I don't know what it is. Something about it. Maybe it's the cadence or something. All right, let's check out this fan-made video. This is from Sabaton, Brazil. And that's the website it's off of as well. So shout out to Sabaton, Brazil. Let's go ahead and full screen this. I have no idea if this is good or not, but it does have, like I say, it's got like 4 million views, so that's pretty good. I would assume it's going to be quality. So I love the artwork here. It's got the Brazilian flag emboldened onto the Sabaton logo, and it's got the cobra smoking a cigarette over there. That's pretty cool. All right, let's jump into it. Here we go. There are no subtitles, but we just went through the lyrics, so we know what it's about. So this takes place during World War II. Not in Brazil. They actually traveled to where the war was and fought on behalf of Brazil in the war. So I didn't even know Brazil was part of World War II. That's kind of really eye-raising to me. Maybe that was there wasn't a United Nations back then, right? But interesting that they threw their hat into the ring. I'm interested now to hear the history and find out how that all happened. So I'm guessing this was footage pulled from some sort of movie or something. Maybe a Brazilian film that's about war. Maybe it even tells the stories of these smoking snakes, uh, but obviously I've never seen it before. Uh, Let me know if you have seen it and if it's worth watching. Maybe I can download it. One thing I do like about this guitar solo is that they do have the dueling guitars, different harmonies going on. That's really nice. But yeah, and yes, I know I just committed the cardinal sin and paused during a guitar solo, so we will back up and start over. For all of you originalists. Shout out again to Sabaton, Brazil. We're going to jump into the history lesson and see what this thing is all about. I'm guessing, I don't know, like I say, it could be pretty straightforward. Brazil sent soldiers over during World War II. Some of them came back as heroes, and they wrote a song about them. So it could just be that simple. But let's see what they did to earn that praise. This is Sabaton history number 8, early in Sabaton history. Brazilian Expeditionary Force, Smoking Snakes by Sabaton. Here we go.
I'm Indy Nidell.
And I'm Pat from Sabaton, and this is Sabaton History.
You might not think of Brazil when you think of World War II, but the Brazilian Expeditionary Force fought well in Italy, producing 3 extraordinary heroes.
Our song, The Smoking Snakes, is about the memory of those people. And we actually went down to Cuesta Fora in Brazil and met the people who served with them.
Now, Para is going to tell you a bit about the song, but I'm going to tell you about the Brazilian Expeditionary Force. When you think of the major combatants of the Second World War, Brazil is usually not the first nation that springs to mind. And indeed, if it had been up to the Brazilian government, they would have preferred to stay out of the conflict. Okay, in the 1920s, Brazil was haunted by internal conflicts, both politically and socially. Radicals on the left and on the right fought for control of the state, and a series of coups and insurrections destabilized the country. The rise of Getulio Vargas in the wake of the Brazilian Revolution of 1930 meant that, on the one hand, Brazil began an era of industrialization and social reforms. while on the other hand, the country slowly shifted into authoritarian dictatorship. By 1937, Vargas was basically ruling the country by martial law. But although he had been inspired by and copied from the European fascists on his rise to power, he did not officially align himself with them. One major reason he did not was the growing influence of the United States. The U.S. felt that Brazil, most of Central and South America, was part of its sphere of economic influence and watched carefully for any signs of foreign influence. And indeed, there was a growing German influence in South America, especially in Argentina, Brazil's major enemy and rival. Though both countries had significant German and Japanese minorities who influenced public opinion. When the U.S. joined the war after Pearl Harbor in December 1941, American politicians acted quickly. Already in January 1942, they met with leading figures from all over South America and made an alliance with most of the nations, except Argentina and Chile. Brazilian politicians would still have gladly traded with the Axis powers, especially after Germany promised favorable arms deals for raw materials. But the U.S. made it perfectly clear that this was not cool with them, and consequences would follow. So Brazil joined their South American alliance. The Axis powers were well aware of the importance of raw materials from South America to the Allied war effort. So German and Italian submarines began targeting cargo vessels from Brazil en route to the U.S. In August 1942 alone, German submarine U-507 torpedoed and sank 5 Brazilian ships, and hundreds of dead Brazilian sailors caused a huge public outcry. Although the isolationistic Vargas government did not want to be involved in the war, public opinion forced his hand, and Brazil declared war on Germany August 22nd, 1942.
I never even had a clue that battles in the Atlantic went anywhere south of the equator. I thought it was all happening between where the United States is and where Europe is, there in that part of the Atlantic Ocean. I never had a clue it went down to South America. I just did not get a very good history education when I was coming up. This is all news to me. I had no clue South America, any countries in South America played a part in the World War.
This meant mobilizing the Army and the Navy, though both were in a rather poor state. Brazil did not have a large army anyhow, nor the equipment to outfit one. In fact, they were equipped with an amalgamation of European weapons, so they turned to the U.S. for help. The U.S. was actually not all that keen on helping out, since American industry had its hands full with equipping their own units, but they couldn't turn down the Brazilians without insulting them. So they offered to supply them with uniforms and rifles and some older artillery pieces, but everything else would have to wait. Brazil began training a division of 3 regiments with service and support companies attached to it. The Brazilian Expeditionary Force, or FEB, 25,000 men strong. Soon, American outfitted from head to toe, helmet, field jacket, boots, and knife. They still had to train with old Springfield rifles instead of the standard M1s. By July 1943, they were ready. But the tanks, half-tracks, and jeeps that had been promised had still not arrived, as they were not prioritized by American quartermasters. But where would the FEB be deployed? Guard duty on the Portuguese islands of the Atlantic was suggested. Then there was talk they would ship out to North Africa, but nothing happened for a whole year as the Brazilians waited and trained. By mid-1944, the war in the Mediterranean had progressed from North Africa to Sicily and then bogged down in Italy. With the Americans now engaged in northern France, they could use all the help they could get in Italy, where there was already a multinational force fighting at Monte Cassino. So in July 1944, the 1st Brazilian Regiment reached Italy. But the Americans there, at first, did not really know what to do with them and didn't even have enough barrack space for them. By now, there was a whole lot of discontent with the whole waiting around to do what they trained for shtick. The Brazilian soldiers were eager, but had been held back for so long that by then they had the saying, "Mais fácil a uma cobra cachimbo fumar do que a FEB embaçar." It is more likely for a snake to smoke a pipe than for the FEB to go into combat. Sort of like when pigs fly. The smoking snake became so popular that they made patches of it for their uniforms. However, by September 1944, they approached the front lines in Tuscany at the Arno River. Here, they had their baptism by fire. Most of the Brazilian troops were dangerously green in spite of the extensive training because only a few older officers had actual combat experience from the Brazilian Revolution. But they fought skirmishes against German and Italian units until the winter came. Allied High Command was determined to make a northern Italian push in spring 1945 with the aim of capturing Bologna. For that, they would have to first secure the high ground in northern Tuscany. So in the winter of 44-45, the Brazilians were sent out to fight in the mountains in temperatures down to minus 20 degrees and often against veteran German Gebirgsjäger. Most of the Brazilians had never seen snow before.
I was just going to say this is a tropical, what do you call it? What do they call that? A rainforest nation. They don't know what snow is. They're totally not in their element. Oh my goodness. It must have been just so like being on another planet for them.
Fighting in the mountains was as tough as you might imagine. The terrain was difficult, and the Brazilians engaged German forces at Monte Castelo, a well-defended artillery position. They were often sent out at night on combat patrols to infiltrate the German lines, probe their defenses, and capture prisoners. As the 1945 campaign season began, Allied High Command began Operation Encore. This was a combined American-British offensive to finally drive the German 10th and 14th armies out of Italy. The Brazilians, supporting the Americans, would send out their whole division. They were tasked with attacking Montese, a major German strongpoint in the south of the Po Valley. The attack on the city was planned for mid-April, and the Brazilians would advance on the left flank of the American thrust, this time even supported by armor. Prior to the attack, the Brazilians sent out patrols to reconnoiter the heights and villages around the city, or to clear minefields and update the maps. But the German infantry lay in wait, and on April 14th, right before the main attack, the Brazilian Mountain Infantry Patrol, consisting of Geraldo Baita da Cruz, Arlindo Lucio da Silva, and Geraldo Rodrigues de Souza, was ambushed by a large German force. Spotted by a German machine gun, the three men ran for cover. They were heavily outnumbered and could not be reinforced, but they did not surrender. Instead, they returned fire until their ammunition ran dry and mortar shells began falling around them. According to the legend, the Brazilians still refused to surrender, and instead fixed their bayonets and advanced on the Germans. The three were killed, and the Germans then buried them and planted a cross as a tribute to the heroism the Brazilians displayed. The cross bears an inscription, which I'll get to in a moment. The battle for Montese began, and the three heroes were not the only Brazilians to die that day. Montese was liberated by the Brazilians after several days of house-to-house fighting, and this battle was both the heaviest and also the final major battle the FEB fought in the Second World War. Fighting continued after the battle as the Germans retreated, but once Mussolini was killed by Italian partisans on April 28th, the unconditional surrender of the Axis forces in Italy was signed. Now, I spoke with a Brazilian historian about the grave and its veracity. The FEB's burial platoon did find a grave with a cross and the inscription Drai Tapfere Brasil, and the soldiers were identified by their dog tags. This is beyond doubt. For the Germans to bury them at all is very unusual. Corpses were often booby-trapped even, so you have to wonder what they did to impress the Germans. The bayonet charge and facing German fire is likely, though not definitely, an invention. The grave also bears the date January 24th, 1945, long before the fighting for Montese. However, the more famous version of the story is what I said from the Montese fighting, and with Drei Brasilianische Helden, 3 Brazilian heroes, on the grave. So there are 2 competing stories, and we don't know for sure what those brave men in the grave specifically did. Anyhow, the battle for Italy was over, and so was the war for the FEB. For the Brazilian national conscience, the death of the 3 heroes became synonymous with their struggle in a war far from home, in an unfamiliar land, on unfamiliar ground. This fight has become legend, and we will never know what happened exactly on that day. But the story of those brave Brazilian men helps us make sense of the seemingly senseless death of endless millions on the battlefields of the world. These 3 young men died fighting selflessly against the Nazis to save countless other lives, the lives of strangers. And that is the ultimate sacrifice, lest we forget. We'd like to thank Icles Rodriguez and the channel Leitura Obriga Historia for help with the research for this. There is a link to their channel in the description.
Very cool story. Obviously, there's no way to confirm it's whether it's true or not, but it sounds like there was enough evidence to at least support that they were respected when they were buried. So, fun story. Story of legends, like Indy said, and when you're a legend, you get songs written about you. So here we are.
Now, I find it very interesting that you chose to write about Brazilians during World War II, you know?
Yeah, it is an interesting thing, you know, but we get a lot of ideas from fans all across the world, and we do have a lot of Brazilian fans, so they kept giving us ideas.
They've been writing here to us every week since we started saying Smoking Snakes.
Yeah, we can imagine that. But actually this one was inspired by just researching. We were looking for stories about heroes. And I put in the word heroes
on the internet.
Yeah, in search engines on different languages. And when I put it in German, Helden, that's when I came across Drei Brasilias Helden.
As we saw in the history.
Yeah, and it was a bit difficult to find the correct information for it, because obviously we don't speak Portuguese.
But they think you speak every language.
Yeah.
You guys are gods.
Yeah,
Don't tell them that.
All right, well, we don't speak all the languages, but we luckily have a lot of friends around the world who help us speak these languages.
Okay.
And some years later, we are finding ourselves on a tour in Brazil. In the city of Curitiba, we went actually to the Smoking Snakes Museum. Where we met with some veterans and we were awarded with a medal for the memory of keeping
for commemorating the...
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
And later we went to a city called Juez de Fora, where obviously the 3 people that we sing about in the song came from.
Yeah.
And as we were standing backstage before the show was about to begin, the promoter of the concert came and said, "We have a special guest here tonight who would like to meet with you." And in came an older man. Well, we understood he was a veteran. And he explained in Portuguese, though, that he was serving together with the guys that we were singing about.
Oh, so he was fighting in Italy with them.
Yes. The man was making a lot of funny jokes, including one where he was poking our singer, and he was poking him with the metal armor that he's wearing.
Sure, okay.
And he was like, "That's not bulletproof, so you can't survive in war." And then he was looking at our drummer, who's a very tall guy, and said, "You can't survive a war either, because you're simply too tall that the enemy will shoot you instantly."
The snipers and stuff.
Yeah. Then we took a couple of pictures with this man. And after that we say, "Thank you for showing up, and have a safe trip home, because we're going to go onto the stage and perform the show now."
Right.
And he was like, "Yeah, I'm staying for the show." Oh, okay. And we thought, oh, you know, it's going pretty wild out there. It's a heavy metal crowd out there, and they are Brazilians, so they are a very tough crowd. But the man said, "Yeah, but I did survive the war, didn't I? I think I'm gonna survive a heavy metal show."
That's awesome.
Now, there's one thing that you told me, which I think is really interesting. Since your song is a tribute to these men, but there's also tributes to your song.
Yeah, well, a lot of them actually. If you think about it that way, you refer to the orchestral version.
Yeah.
So yeah, okay, yeah, because the song "Smoking Snakes" is obviously about the Brazilian army, and there's a lot of Brazilian army orchestras who cover this one, and I think they actually made it to one of their marching songs now.
Wait, can we hear and see some of those right now? Well, that's really cool that you guys get honored in return.
Yeah. I mean, we always get blush, even if it's just one person and a different band, or in this case, whole orchestras. We appreciate when people covering our tunes.
Yeah.
in some of our songs, it's actually funny when we are talking about a specific country.
Yeah.
We try as well sometimes to get in something of the local language. And in the song Smoking Snakes, we have a few words in Portuguese.
Okay.
And it is, of course, it becomes very powerful when it's in your native language. And when thousands of Brazilians sing along to Portuguese language, it sounds like this. And that was the story behind Smoking Snakes.
But we'll see you next time on the Sabaton History Channel.
All right, everybody, thanks for watching. And don't forget to subscribe to the Sabaton History Channel, check out Indie's other channels, and please also support us here on Patreon, because that's really what makes this thing happen.
Yeah, man, as always, support Sabaton on Patreon. We've got to keep these history lessons coming. This is another great story. This is another example of when Sabaton takes a lesser-known country or, as far as their participation in whatever, and brings it to the forefront. Teaches all of us who, they always focus on the big countries and what they were doing. But a lot of times the smaller countries, and I'm not saying Brazil is tiny. Brazil's a massive country, but they weren't the major forces in World War II is what I'm saying. And it's nice that Sabaton gave them a bit of a shout out, something to be proud of, so that the folks who did their time serving for the Brazilian expeditionary forces can have something to, enjoy and be proud of. So that's very cool. Once again, Sabaton showing light to the darkness of things that would normally be forgotten. So very cool. All right, we're going to jump into this live performance. This might be the smallest stage I've ever seen Sabaton perform on. So it'll be interesting to see how this one comes out. But this crowd, like I say, this crowd is so into this. I only clicked through a couple of seconds of this to make sure it all looked and sounded good. And it was enough for me to say, yeah, this is the one we're going to watch. So let's go ahead and jump into it. This is Smoking Snakes live from Sabaton. Here we go.
Smoking snakes. That's right, you don't have it on the set list. I'm sorry, it's not on the set list, you can't play that song. My friends, these are always some of the special moments for us, because as you know, we sing about military history, but to sing a song that is about a nation in its home country, it's always very special. I think it's time we sing together. Are you ready for Smoking Snakes?
There's a real chance that a lot of these people in this crowd only know this song. There's a real chance this is their only Sabaton song that they've ever listened to. I mean, I'm just saying that kind of thing happens. of course, Pear's always got a big smile on his face. Love it, love it, love it. He's always got the best attitude. He loves being a rock star. Shout out to Pear. That stage is so small. Tommy and Chris are like squeezed against the walls. They're pretty much having to stay in one place the whole time. Hell, Hannes's entire drum set takes up half the stage. Crazy. But shout out to them for playing these small venues for these people who otherwise wouldn't have been able to see them. So, just awesome. Hell yeah. Nice. So good. All right. That was Smoking Snakes by Sabaton. I really enjoyed that. Never knew anything about this history whatsoever. I feel so dumb. I feel so uneducated that I had no clue. If you could have put Brazil on a list of countries and I would have been like, oh, you accidentally wrote Brazil on there. There's no way Brazil was involved. Also, the fact that the German U-boats were sinking supply ships all the way down south of the equator. Also, nothing I would have guessed was true. But good song. Looks like the people of Brazil really love it. The legend behind these three men who fought hard and heroically and ended up losing their lives in the war, inspired a whole generation of Brazilian soldiers, I'm sure. So shout out to Sabaton for once again giving voices to those who don't have a voice. Sorry, I had a weird noise here in the house. That's it for this reaction. If you guys enjoyed it, hit that like button down below. It doesn't hurt you at all. It makes me feel good when people like my videos. Thank you to everybody that's been liking my videos. If you're not already subscribed to the channel, there's a big red button down below. If you click on that, it'll turn gray to let you know you've subscribed. And if you hit that bell right next to it, it'll let you know anytime I drop some new content over here at Touchy Reactions. We're covering music from all over the world. I never would have discovered Sabaton if I wasn't already listening to some other music. I think I was listening to BTS at the time, maybe even TXT, who are both K-pop boy bands. And somebody in the comments, Martine, says, "Hey man, I see you got that 82nd Airborne hat on. You should go check out this group called Sabaton from back in Sweden, and they're really good, and you probably like them." So gave it a shot, and here I am. Shoot, 6 months later, I got tickets to their show. I've reacted to over 50, almost 60 of their videos, and I consider myself part of the Sabaton Army. I mean, this has been a great ride for me. So shout out to everybody who's come along for that ride. If you're the type of person who's got a little bit of money and can support a YouTube channel, I got a link up here in the corner to my Patreon. Thank you to all my patrons. You guys rock. You've been helping keeping the channel afloat, getting me some new material, getting some new toys to play with, so to say. And I'm going to be introducing some new graphics, some new sound, that kind of stuff here in the near future. And that's all thanks to my patrons. Thank you all for supporting the channel. That is it for this reaction. I appreciate you stopping by. And please don't forget to come on back.